Hey guys, this is Collin Moshman for CardRunners.com. Today we have a $2.50 180-man sit and go played on PokerStars by a reg at these stakes. Pocket 6's UTG. My default play is to fold. At the right table though, both limping and raising can be reasonable, but I am going to be opening 8s, Ace-Queen, Ace-Jack suited with a raise to 60. We have a couple of folds, Ace-Queen in the small blind, a raise and a flat, and my default play here is going to be to flat in the small blind. Folding is going to be a bit too weak. We don't have enough read. Certainly with the right stats, if this guy was playing a hyper tight game like 9-7, we could just fold, but generally we're going to be entering the pot, and 3-betting is another option. If we have the read that UTG +1 is very loose, we can 3-bet and be willing to get it in and play for stacks. But without that read, I don't want to stack off. I don't want to face a 4-bet, so I would tend to flat. So I like hero's play there. We check, planning to check fold. Great turn card. I would go ahead and bet right out, close to full pot. There are a lot of worse hands and draws that can call, so I would go ahead and fire about 180 here. And good decision to bet. A little bit on the small side, but definitely the correct bet. And a terrible river card. And hero elects to check here, which is not a bad option, but my preferred option is to make a blocking bet. So the benefits there are that if he has a worse one-pair hand, he's probably going to check it back. So if he has a hand like 8x, 9x, which is less likely because he checked back the flop, and he probably would have been 9x, but there is some possibility a passive player would hold that hand. Worse Queen X hands, most of those he's going to check back. So we do get some thin value from those, and it's also more likely that a passive player is going to bluff if he has a hand like, say, 10-7 suited and we check to him, than he will to bluff raise if we throw out a small bet. Face a bet of 220, we're getting 3-1, so the question here is whether we're going to be good at least 25% of the time. I would definitely call a non-heart king, but there are very few hands we're beating, and I think it's debatable whether we're good even 25% of the time, so I would tend to fold here. Hero instead elects to make the call, and he is good, so Villain elected presumably to make a thin value bet on the river with his Queen X hand, but definitely consider making a blocking bet in the river on those situations. Okay, next hand, Queen 10 offsuit. Had everyone folded, I would have suggested a raise to 60 on the button. And, you definitely can play a pretty tag style and be very profitable in most micro stakes games, but at the same time, we do want to take advantage of weak playing opponents. And so, if, for example, we have a hand like any kind of Broadway hand, pair, ace-x hand on the button, then we should be pretty inclined to come in. If everyone folds, that's great. And if we do have someone called and they're going to be playing out of position, and we often make significant post-flop mistakes. So not such a bad thing, and we should be looking to get involved pretty often in good spots, including during the low blinds. Jacks are a clear call here. We can think about his range, the player who has limped shoved on us. And there are a lot of holdings he could have here. Definitely a low mid pair, a hand like pocket 6s we should expect to see fairly often. Sort of random suited cards like 10-9 suited. Definitely some ace-x hands as well. Occasionally he might be doing this with a higher pocket pair, but no question it's a clear call with the jacks. And the portion of my ISO raising range that I would call it off here with would be at least 9s plus, ace-queen, unless we had some kind of read. So definitely the correct call with the jacks. And surprisingly, he is ace-king. But even when he is this strong, it's still a good spot, given that there's quite a bit of overlay at that point. We have a slight edge flipping with the pair. So not a bad outcome even in that case. And hero manages to double. Ace-king suited, definitely another ISO raise. And we face a 3-bet and a flat. A clear decision to shove here. At minimum, we would shove tens, ace, king, and list this player as very tight. And if he has very loose stats, so maybe we've seen so far, even over a small sample, he's playing something like 49/32 VPIP PFR, then we could widen quite a bit, as there's a good chance this player is simply on tilt and on a much wider range than he would otherwise be. So here puts it in as great equity and somehow manages to hold against Jack 10 and Ace Jack.